Hey, Hefe, it's time for Collection Connection, the game that's just an excuse to talk about records. The collection part is that I got a couple of albums here to talk about today, one from my music collection and one from the music collection of my brother. The connection part is that there's a quirk or a facet that these two albums have in common, and we challenge you to figure out what that might be. My brother is Plastic Eric, and he runs the Plastic Soundwave Cult channel. On Monday, he talked about Imagine, the 1971 classic from John Lennon. Despite it being a classic hit record by an ex-Beatle, however, I am unfamiliar with the album proper, so I've given it a listen and I'll share my thoughts about it. From there, I have forged a connection to James Murphy's revival of his alternative dance outfit, LCD Soundsystem, with 2017's American Dream. And the connection is not that they both have clouds on the cover. Once again, this is a connection with a couple of layers of depth, so you can name the more readily apparent connection, if you like, for a point. But if you want free shipping on that point, I'm going to need you to guess the slightly deeper common ground that these two albums share. You can leave your guess in the comments, and if you're right, you will earn a shout out in my brother's next video. But first, let's officially reveal the connection between the prior pair of albums, those being Liz Phair's Exile in Guyville and John Lennon's Imagine. And the connection is that both artists were adopted. I'm not sure exactly how adopted John Lennon was. I know he grew up with his aunt, but I don't know if he was officially adopted. Nonetheless, I don't have to sweat the finer points of it because it was still guessed, regardless, by Murdoch from Murdoch's Music Minute. Our favorite guesser at this point because he bails us out more than anyone else. His latest video is a review of the Seeds album. I forget which album, but you can check that out over on his channel, Murdoch's Music Minute. So congratulations, Murdoch. And with that, let's get on with the show. All right, so Eric did talk about John Lennon's Imagine album, which is funny. It's not funny in and of itself. It's a perfectly reasonable album to talk about. But looking up some information about it, I was once again struck by how little I really know about post-Beatles. I thought Imagine was sort of much later in the 70s, but it was his second proper solo album, I guess, if you don't count the two albums that he made with Yoko. Yeah, it came out in 1971, and to my surprise, it's kind of a straightforward album of music. I have a Lennon Legend collection, and I'm kind of lukewarm on that, and I figure, if there's maybe 5 or 6 tracks on there that I really like and a handful that I really kind of don't, that's probably enough John Lennon for me. But it's surprising to see or hear just how straight ahead, for the most part, Imagine felt as an album. I really don't know the songs other than, the ones that are the hits that everybody knows, including the title track. But what felt like it was Lennon in his most sort of experimental period did just lead to a regular record that was quite accessible. And it was accessible enough that it was a #1 hit on both sides of the Atlantic, and as well as a number of other countries besides. That's all cool. I could see myself actually getting Imagine maybe at some point now. It feeling a little tighter even than his best of collections. And that surprises me, I have to say. Nonetheless, I don't have a whole ton more to say on the album. I'm kind of working in a condensed timeline a little bit. I did listen to it and was caught off again by how accessible it seemed. But beyond that, I don't have any kind of deep insights, especially on something as globally famous as John Lennon's Imagine. My knee-jerk reaction isn't going to add any nuance, I don't think, to any sort of conversation about this album. So with that said, let's move straight ahead to the connecting album, which is American Dream by LCD Soundsystem from 2017 DFA Records. This was an album that came out a number of years after founder James Murphy had retired the LCD Soundsystem name in his own sort of proclamation. Nobody was pushing him to do it, but he decided with the 2010 album, This Is Happening, that they were going to be done. They did a round of shows, recorded one of them, became kind of a live thing, a Stop Making Sense kind of deal. And at the end of the tour, they were supposedly done. And perhaps unsurprisingly, he eventually decided he had some more music he wanted to make. And kind of out of the blue came American Dream. It had a little bit of a build-up before that. I think there was some kind of maybe like a Christmas single. And then a couple of tracks from the album, Call the Police and Tonight, that were released in advance of the album itself. But like a lot of albums from the 2010s, I bought it because I have bought LCD Soundsystem albums. I think I just saw it in the store and picked it up. And looking at my iTunes stats, I'm actually surprised that it is mostly in double digits, that it has gotten enough plays to be at that sort of level. In my mind, I've listened to it maybe 2 or 3 times ever, and I still don't know the songs very well. I think my impression of it, certainly my initial impression of it, was that it was just kind of more of the same, and it was surprising that he felt compelled to, sheepishly kind of come back and say, oh, hey, I guess we got another album that we want to put out. That it didn't feel like it reinvented the wheel. Certainly the opening track, Oh Baby, feels like a very LCD Soundsystem kind of song. Very repetitious, very made for the clubs, kind of just the sweaty ambiance of a dance club. The music has always been very DJ inspired, and the key to listenability, for me at least almost, has been his lyrics. Being kind of witty, sardonic, whatever, but his particular way of phrasing things, looking at things, talking about things is more of the draw than a listenable loop, but the loops loop for, a good 8 minutes in some of these songs. And that starts to wear thin on me a little bit. It takes the novelty of lyrics kind of moving around in there to make me not focus on the fact that I'm hearing a boom, 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 over and over. But I was not able to do that really listening to this album. All I heard was really the repetitious elements of it. And to that end, I've never picked up really on any of the lyrics. I don't know what the songs are about. And so it became something that, even though apparently I've listened to it more times than I thought I had, I haven't listened to it real recently before the last couple of days, and didn't have much of an impression of. I felt like, there's older songs that sound like this that I'm already familiar with, that I like better. I'd rather listen to, North American Scum or Dance Yourself Clean or some of those tracks over anything that was on here. But in the last couple of days, I will say that the single Call the Police is much more of a song than I think of LCD Soundsystem as having, and it's kind of a jam. It is long. That's another thing, just looking at all the track, I think that there's one song that's maybe under 5 minutes long. Most of them are between 5 and 7 minutes long, plus one 9-minute track and a 12-minute track. The 12-minute track being the closer, Black Screen, which is apparently, just from what I read, not from what I heard or recognized, a tribute to David Bowie. And he's got a couple other songs like About People on here. I guess the title track, American Dream, is a tribute to Alan Vega, of the band that today you would have to call Unalive, the Unaliving, but the seminal punk band from the late 70s, early 80s that was apparently a big inspiration on James Murphy. And the song How Do You Sleep, which is about Tim Goldsworthy, the co-founder of DFA Records with James Murphy. But that's all stuff that I gleaned from reading about it, not stuff that I could hear from listening to it. I had to be told those things. And so as far as the music, like I said, Oh Baby feels like a very by the numbers to me LCD Soundsystem track, which makes you wonder why they opened the album with it, because it tunes me out a little bit right from the beginning. Other Voices, ironically, takes from another very repetitious source. I thought I had an insight listening to it. It said that sounds very Talking Heads, like Remain in Light to me, which is itself inspired by the music of Fela Kuti, but it doesn't sound like Fela Kuti. It sounds like Talking Heads being inspired by Fela Kuti. But it is four beats of a thing that is just repeated over and over. And it's not bad, but it does wear thin, sort of at the length that it is. But it kind of picks up from there, I think, a little bit before kind of falling off with Black Screen. I don't know that it feels like, to me, like it needs to be 12 minutes long, but that is just me. It's very much a mood piece, and that was the one that just kind of had the boom, boom, boom just going over and over. That was driving me a little nuts as I was listening to it. But yeah, I would definitely point out Call the Police. It's kind of a jam. It's something I'm going to pull out again here and listen to. Maybe put in higher rotation. Actually figure out what the lyrics are, what he's singing about. Because that was pretty good. I Used To, again, kind of a little more of a song with that kind of 80s feel of almost like The Cure. In their most sort of despondent sound of minimalism, around the sort of pornography era, 17 seconds, stuff like that. And beyond that, I won't beat myself up over not having a ton to say. Maybe I can finally have a video that's not 20 minutes long this week. Expecting way too much watch time out of everybody. But yeah, it's decent. It was surprising. It was good to have an excuse to pull it out and listen to it with fresh ears. With my impression of it having been, that's kind of more of the same, and I'd just rather listen to the older LCD Soundsystem. This was a success. It was fairly well reviewed and appreciated. It made a ton of, year-end best of lists for the year 2017. I think Mojo Magazine even had it as their number one album of the year. And so it had never made that much of an impression on me. It's good to have the opportunity to pull it out, find some things about it that had escaped me before, that primarily being the song Call the Police. But lots of stuff. Emotional Haircut on there, and I Used To and Tonight, I think, are all deserving of a higher rotation than they've had for me in recent times. But with that, I will throw the album American Dream by LCD Soundsystem over to Eric, and he will find an album in his collection that connects in some way to this album, and he will talk about that album on Monday over on his channel, The Plastic Sound Wave Cult. So again, if you think you know what the connection is between John Lennon's Imagine from 1971 and American Dream from LCD Soundsystem from 2017, put that guess down in the comments and we'll let you know if you got it right. I'd love to see somebody guess the full answer. There's an easier answer and a more complete answer, but it is based on the same thing. It's not a complete different direction. So give that a shot. Leave it down in the comments. And with that, that's all I got. So I thank you for watching. Bye-bye. Good show, Ponsonby.